Good morning, children. Welcome you all, grade 8, for our today's English class. Before getting into the session, children, let's watch a video of today's session.
Macavity's a mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair, for when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law, he breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare, and when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity's not there. Macavity's a ginger cat, he's very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought, his head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect, his whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by-street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, the Macavity's not there.
Hi students, good morning to everyone. Today we are going to see the next poem from our Honeydew book. The title of the poem is Macavity, the Mystery Cat, written by T.S. Eliot. Let's look at about the author, T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot, in full, Thomas Stearns Eliot. He was born in the year 1888 on 26 September in Missouri, U.S. He was a poet, essayist, publisher, playwright, literary critic, and an editor. In the year 1914, he moved to England for settlement, work, and marriage. He won a Nobel Prize and Order of Merit in the year 1948, and he was died on 4th January at age of 76 in London. Let me explain the character Macavity. Macavity is a fiction and an imaginary character. It has been taken from one of the T.S. Eliot poetry book, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. This is the only book that T.S. Eliot has written for younger audience. Here the character Macavity was actually a cat, but he has been practiced as a criminal. Very bad, terrible criminals that we have seen in the movies, who are very difficult to catch hold of. So, Macavity is also like that character, who plays a crime, who does the crime, but hides from the scene. None of the police also could ever catch him. So here the poet T.S. Eliot has so beautifully described this character in his poem by giving such minute details of his looks and its behavior. In this book, he has written a light and entertaining poem about cats. Before getting to the poem, let's see the warm-up area. Do you have a pet cat? Have you ever noticed anything mysterious about it? It is not easy to say whether every cat is a mystery, but Macavity is one for sure. What is it that makes him a perfect mystery cat? Read the poem and find out. Let's read the poem now. Let's start the poem now. Look at the first stanza. Macavity's a mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He is the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying sword's despair, For when they reached the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. Let's start the explanation of the first stanza. Miss Macavity's a mystery cat. He is called the hidden paw. Here the Macavity is a mystery cat. It means people they doesn't know much about the cat. It was an unknown cat. Here he called as hidden paw. Here hidden paw is the nickname given to the cat. Paw means the foot of an animal. So mystery means unknown. And hidden paw, it means he was usually hidden and never seen by anybody. For he is the master criminal who can defy the law. So criminal means one who commits a crime. Here master criminal, here the cat Macavity is the master criminal. He was a well-known criminal who could disobey the law. Defy means disobey. So who could disobey the law, and he never follows any rules and regulations. Was the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair. So bafflements means the meaning is there given under the stanza. It is confusion. Bafflement means confusion. Of Scotland Yard. What is meant by Scotland Yard? It is the headquarters of the London's police force. So it is the headquarters of the London police force. So here everybody in the police force was confused about its identity. Even the flying squad means a group of police or soldiers are ready to move into action quickly whenever there is a massive problem occur or disobedience of law. So this police force or soldiers who are ready to fight and who are ready to search for him. The meaning for the word despair means sadness. So Macavity had created lot of confusions and lot of sadness for them because he was never caught. For when they reached the scene of crime, Macavity not there, because whenever they reached the crime scene, he is also away. Macavity was never there. From the first stanza, let's see the second stanza now. Macavity, Macavity, there is no one like Macavity. He has broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare. And when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. You may seek him in the basement. You may look up in the air. But I tell you once and once again, Macavity's not there. Let's start the explanation of the second stanza. Macavity, Macavity, there is no one like Macavity. Here the author conveys nobody like that cat because he was such a criminal cat. He's broken every human law. Here he has broken every law and order of that place, and he breaks the law of gravity. What is meant by law of gravity? We are all in the ground with the help of gravity, but whenever he was committing a crime, he was disappear as if he had disappeared in the thin air. Gravity didn't work on him. It was like that. So gravity is not supporting to the cat. So he is such a criminal cat. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare. What is meant by levitation? Rising or floating in the air without support. So power of levitation means he had a power of to float in the air without any support. That means he had its magical power with it, by which he had float in the air. So fakir, what does it mean by fakir? One who lives alone. That means like people who are living alone, like a monk or a priest who has some magical powers. So fakir stare means people who lives alone and they won't want any property. They won't own any property. They live alone and they live lonely life dedicated to God, like priests. When these fakirs say, so here these fakirs, they are saying that the magical powers of the Macavity. They even used to stare in amusement. So they are looking constantly, they are staring at the Macavity and they were shocked about the magical powers that he had, even by the priests and the monks. Then when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. So whenever the police, the Scotland Yard, they try to catch hold of Macavity, catch hold red-handed, he was never found in the place. He will immediately use its magical power and escapes from the place immediately. So in this stanza, we have seen the power, magical power that the Macavity had. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air. So here the meaning for the word seek is searching. Basement means underground area. So here even when if you search Macavity in the ground or in the air, but I'll tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. That means Macavity will never be found and he will not be there. This stanza explains the surprising powers of Macavity. He was so powerful and also so influenced by the magical powers, so that he could manage not to get caught by the police after committing the huge crime. And everybody used to look in amazement and so they surprised on him and said that how could to catch him, and they couldn't do the task and to complete it. Let's move on to the third stanza now. Macavity is a ginger cat. He is very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly doomed. His coat is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. And when you think he is half asleep, he is always wide awake. Let's start the explanation of the third stanza now. Macavity is a ginger cat. He is very tall and thin. So here the author tells the first appearance as a ginger cat. It means the color of the cat as light brown color as the color of the ginger. And the next second thing is that he is very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. It means if you suppose you can happen to see him, you can easily recognize him by the eyes that it was sunken in, that is inside the face. His brow is deeply lined with thought. his head is highly doomed. Here, the eyebrow of the Macavity was described as it was deeply lined with thoughts. It means there are some lines on its forehead as if he was thinking something. There are so many thoughts gone on in his mind. And the next thing about his forehead, the head was highly doomed. It means the shape, doomed, it's a kind of a shape. So the head is like a doom. Next appearance of the Macavity is about his fur. Coat means fur, the outer skin of the cat. So it looks dirty. And from neglect. Neglect means because he don't have time to look after himself. He always used to spend his time for committing crimes so that he just ignored himself to keep himself clean. And his whiskers are uncombed. Here, even whiskers are uncombed. Long hair on the cheeks were uncombed. So the long hair under the cheeks were also uncombed because he all the time committing the crime. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. This line explains the move of the head. He moves his head. Macavity had a habit of moving his head from side to side, just like a movement of a snake. Here, the poetical device simile is used. So here, the cat head movement is compared to the movement of the snake's head. The meaning for the word sways means move. And when you think he is half asleep, he is always wide awake. It means, so here, now this is the way our Macavity cheats everyone, like as he is half asleep. That like sleeping, but he is not. He is wide awakened. He is acting and cheating everyone. That's all from the explanation of the third stanza. Let's start the fourth stanza now. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity's not there. By T.S. Eliot. See the explanation of the fourth stanza. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. Yes, here, of course, there is no other cat in the entire world who is as bad as Macavity. For he is a fiend in feline shape. What does mean by fiend? Fiend means devil. Feline means a species or family of cats. For dogs, it is canine species. Similarly, for cat, it is feline species. So the poet described Macavity as a devil in a cat shape and monster of depravity. Depravity means immorality. Immorality, immoral, without any moral values. Immorality means without any moral values. Whenever he commit a crime, he will look like a devil, but he was in a cat shape. This is what the meaning of the first two lines. Let's see the third line now. You may meet him in a by street. You may see him in the square. Here, by street means a side street, a small street that is parallel to the same street. Square, what is meant by square? A open space in the center of the town. That is center part of the city. That is open area where people used to sit and relax. So here you may see Macavity there, but whenever someone tries to catch him after the crime scene, he will not be spotted. So, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity not there. It means someone tries to catch him after the crime scene, he will not be spotted. Whenever the crime discovered, Macavity will not be spotted there. So, the poet says that the one usual days you may find him on a street or in a square, but whenever there is a crime committed by him, after that you will never see him again. Let's see the poetical devices from the poem. First, let me explain what is poetic devices. Poetic devices is a tool that is used by a poet in his poem to create a rhyme or enhance its meaning and emotions. So it is called as poetic devices. Let's see the first poetic device, personification. It means giving human qualities to animals and other objects. For example, the stars winkled at me means it used to get human-like attributes or characteristics to either any object, an object or an animal. In other words, if an object or an animal behaves like humans and thinks like humans, speaks like humans, so that particular is called personification. So, as we have read in the entire poem Macavity, the mystery cat, the character Macavity is completely personified because in this poem, Macavity hasn't been treated like a cat. It has been treated like a human being. So, who is a hardcore criminal? So, the entire poem has got the poetical device personification. The next poetical device was repetition. The repeating of a particular sound device to create an effect. To create emphasis, a poet may repeat words or lines within the poem. So repetition is very easy to understand. A word or a phrase repeated many times in a poem, then it is called as repetition. For the example of repetition, the word Macavity is in the entire poem has been repeated in many places. So as you can see the stanza starting line, Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. So we can saw there is repetition used in the poem. So the poetical device repetition has been used. So the third poetical device was that alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of a same or similar kind of sounds at the beginning of words or in stressed syllables. So here alliteration is used when you have to see back-to-back words which has been same initial sounds. So here the example for the alliteration, look at the first line of the poem, Macavity's a mystery cat. So here Macavity, mystery. Both the words started with the letter M. There is another example for alliteration. In the second line of the poem, he sways his head from side to side. So side word start with the letter S, and another side word start with S. So double S has been used. The same letter is used again and again. So it is a alliteration. Another one more example for alliteration. Look at the last line of the poem. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly doomed. So here his, the word start with the letter H. Head, the word start with the letter H, and highly, the word start with the letter H. So we can see the alliteration that has been used in the poem. As a last, we are going to see the poetical device simile. A simile is a comparison of two things using the words like or as. For example, as sweet as pie, colorful like crayons. As an example for simile, look at the second line of the poem. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. Here, the movement of a snake and movement of the Macavity's head both are compared with the word like. So if you see in a line, there is a presence of the word like. So whenever there is a comparison, and if they had a word like or as present in the line, then definitely that will be a simile. That's all from the poetical device. Well, that's all from the poem Macavity, the Mystery Cat, written by T.S. Eliot. So children, that's all from the today's session. Write the classwork neatly and learn the given question answers thoroughly. Draw lines, write date, write the title, mention it as poem 3, and be ready to attend the teachment. I will be asking questions in the teachment session.